Hola y bienvenidos a Voces Sin Fronteras. Mi nombre es Ana Gómez.
Mi nombre es Faye Jopi.
And I'm Jacinda Armenta.
Y hoy tenemos una persona bien especial y su nombre es Señor Fee.
Buenas tardes a todos.
Señor Fee, tú eres un abogado de inmigración, ¿verdad?
Correcto, soy abogado de inmigración y mi especialidad en inmigración es inmigración de familia.
¿Y pensamos?
Sí, claro que sí.
So, what made you be an attorney? Were you inspired or did you just want to become a lawyer?
Well, being a lawyer is my second career, actually. I used to be a banana farmer, and I lived overseas for 15 years. And when I came back to the United States, it had changed so very much from when I remember having left it. And that is what kind of inspired me to become a lawyer. So I went to law school. I'd been out of college for 15, 20 years before I went back to law school. Had already had a family and I was raising kids, so it was quite a change.
How is law school?
Law school is something you don't want to take lightly. It is a marathon as opposed to a sprint. And law school, I went to school at night, so it was 4 years without a break. No summer off. You had to go maybe a few less classes in the summer during the winter, spring, and the fall, but still had to go all the time. And you are all the time competing with other people, studying. Probably, I guess we would read anywhere from 1,000 to 1,200 pages a week for 4 years. And lots of exams, and all of it in order to take a bar exam at the end, which was a 3-day exam in order to become a lawyer.
That sounds like a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work, yeah. So if you don't want to really do it, don't get it.
As you mentioned earlier, you said that you worked on a banana farm. What was the experience like?
Oh, it was fantastic. I was a banana plantation manager for 5 years in Panama. And during that period, we would export from the division where I was working approximately 25 million boxes of bananas every year. So that's over 100 million boxes that we would have exported over those 5 years. The fruit that I would grow would go to Europe, it would go to the United States, it would go to New Zealand, all from these plantations in Panama. So all over the world we were able to produce and ship the fruit.
Was it like hard or?
Very hard, very labor intensive. Bananas are different than other types of fruit. So for example, like an apple, we always harvest our apples once a year, but bananas produce year round. So we were able to probably have out of 360 days a year, about 320 days we would harvest fruit. And we would work generally from 2 to 3 days to fill each ship. We would normally have 2 ships, sometimes up to 3 ships a week, and it was continually producing, so we're always working.
So like, how does a banana grow?
Well, bananas grow just like any other type of plant. They're a monocot, meaning that they do not have a hard, woody type of trunk, but it's actually a grass, similar to maybe corn. It's easy to cut through with a knife, and they set off shooters or rhizomes. So a mother plant will have a rhizome that goes up that we call the daughter plant. And when we harvest from the mother plant, we'll cut the stalk down, and all of the energy will then go to the daughter plant to produce more fruit. And generally, one plant can produce a bunch of bananas about every 9 months.
So it's like having a baby, but a tree.
It's like having a baby, exactly. It takes a lot of care. We would have, I would say for every, let's say a hectare is about 2.5 acres. So for every hectare, we would have 2 people working in the field and 1 person who working in the packing station. So 3 people for every hectare, and we had, I think, maybe about 4,500 hectares under cultivation when I was down there. So lots and lots of people, about 10,000 people working.
For just a banana?
For just the bananas, yeah.
That's a lot. Yeah.
That's a lot. We have, not only would you have the banana plant, but you had to move the plants to the packing station so you could put the fruit in the box. We had a box factory to make boxes. When they're full, they have to go in a train car to bring it from the farms down to a wharf. The ships would come in, dock at the wharf, and then we had to have special equipment to load the banana boxes onto the ships. So it's a huge operation, taking thousands and thousands of people.
So back to the immigration talk. Very interesting banana story. What types of immigration cases do you like handle most?
Well, most of what I do is family-based immigration, and that would be people who try to bring relatives or other family members to the United States so that they can eventually get a green card and then eventually become U.S. citizens. I also do, as I said before, work with people who are victims of crimes, and they can be in the United States for any reason, from being here without any papers to already being here on a visa. I also work with people who are in process of being deported. So if the federal government captures somebody and says that their immigration status is no good, wants to remove them, but let's say they have been here for many years and have family here and they don't want to leave the country, I work in coming up with defenses to keep them here.
Are you like, if you come here and like one of your family members have a green card or visa, are you able to stay here with it, or like what their?
It always depends on each individual, how they came here. So if you came here on a visa and your spouse is a U.S. citizen or a green card holder, it's, I'm not going to say very easy, but it's quite probable we could get a visa for you to stay. If you came here without a visa and you marry a U.S. citizen, it can still be done, but it's more problematic. And if you come here without a visa and you marry someone else without a visa, it's very, very difficult to almost impossible.
How many clients do you think you have a month?
Well, that's a good question because it varies. Some months I also do, besides immigration, I also do criminal defense law. And I do law in Ohio, Kentucky, and for the federal government. So some months I have more criminal cases, some months I have more immigration clients. I would say I probably have a caseload of anywhere between 10 and 15 people a month.
Is that a lot?
For one person, yeah, it is a lot. And some of those cases can go on for a long, long time.
How do you deal with that? Like,
well, a lot of it is scheduling things with courts and making sure that there are certain types of applications that have to be sent in on specific time. And so my calendar is very important. I have to know what's going on for the next week, the next month, the next 6 months, etc. So a lot of it takes pre-planning, which is very, very important.
What were some interesting cases that has happened?
Well, I've had interesting cases all along. I do a lot of work with crime victims. There's a special immigrant category called a Visa U, or a U visa, and these would be people who've been victims of some violent crimes, really things that are not pleasant to think about, but I've had people who've been stabbed, people who've been shot, people who've been all sorts of victimization, including someone who came here, they thought they were going to live with their aunt and go to school. Well, the aunt basically turned them into a slave. The person could not leave the house, had to do all the cooking, all the cleaning, wasn't even allowed to go to school. So that was a very strange type of case because I wasn't expecting that, and I don't think the person who was victimized was expecting that either.
Have you ever been affected by a case?
Well, yes and no. I try to keep my professional part so I can focus and get what needs to be done in the case. But yeah, there's always some emotional things, especially when you have people who have families involved, and someone has to leave the country and they leave their spouse and they leave their children here. It's very difficult.
what are some of the big challenges you face during court?
Well, I'd say right now the biggest challenges are changes that are coming about in the way that immigration cases are processed. We used to have what I would call very stable, slowly changing immigration laws. And now with the current president, things are changing very, very quickly, and it makes it difficult in order to put your work load together and get your case prepared, because something that you rely upon today might not even be good law tomorrow.
What is the likely outcome of a case?
Well, we call that precedent, and generally how the law works is that if a case has been decided and it's a precedential case, it's a Supreme Court or an appellate court that makes a decision, cases similar to that should be decided along the same way. So there should be a predictable way of going about the law. If, for example, everyone who speeds 20 miles over the speed limit gets caught has to pay a fine. If you speed over the speed limit, 20 miles an hour, you get caught, you expect to pay that fine. That's just how things should be predicted. The problems come when things no longer follow precedent or when the precedent changes. And then it's much, much harder to predict what's going to be the outcome of a case. But in cases that do have precedent and the precedent stands, I would say it's about 95 to 98% you know what's going to happen.
Are there any facts that shocked you while working as an attorney?
Well, yeah, I mean, people do really bad things to other people. That's kind of shocking from time to time. Some of the cases that I work with crime victims, it's just horrible what people can do to other people.
As an American, why did you want to help immigration or like immigrants?
Well, as I was saying, I was a banana farmer, so that means I was an immigrant myself in another country, because you really don't grow bananas here in the United States. And so I lived for 15 years overseas, 4 different countries on 3 different continents. So I got to see what it was like to be an immigrant. I got married when I was overseas to someone who's not a U.S. citizen. I had my children in another country where neither of us were citizens. And I always had to deal with immigration work just for my own family, because it didn't matter where you go, something always got messed up.
Is that why you wanted to go into the immigration, because you were an immigrant before, or?
Well, yes, in that sense, because I knew what was, I guess, being an immigrant experience myself outside of the United States, my wife even in the United States, and so, and also getting my children registered to be U.S. citizens in the consulate where they were born, all of those things. And I figured that because it was something that I was passionate about and I could do, when I decided to become a lawyer, I said, well, I can work in this area because I like what I do there.
Do you keep in contact with clients from like cases?
Yeah, a lot of times I might start off with a client, let's say, who's been a crime victim, and we try to get them the first part of the visa, which is a U visa. After a certain amount of time, if things go well, we can get a green card for them. And after 5 years as a permanent resident with a green card, they can apply for citizenship. So I have worked with people from the time that they were victimized, maybe they didn't even have a visa, to the point of them becoming U.S. citizens. So that's, at a 9 or 10 year process, but I've worked with them all the way through, and it's very satisfying for them and for me too, to be able to take someone who was at the very bottom of the immigration pile and see them all the way become a U.S. citizen. It's pretty neat.
Some children come with their parents here, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, they do.
Are you allowed to get off like a visa if like their parents have a visa, or the kids like automatically have a visa, or like?
In some cases, yes. In other cases, no. What happens, and one of the things that I guess you may or may not have encountered here have been the children who've come up from Central America alone, or the children who've been separated from their parents. In those cases, I can sometimes get things done for the children, particularly if their parents are no longer around, than I can if their parents are here with them. In other cases, there may be a parent who's already been deported. They've come back with a child, but because they already have a deportation order, they're removed right away, but the child is still here. And so I've worked with children who have had their parents deported and are now maybe living with an aunt or an uncle, an older brother or older sister, and help them to to get their immigration status and to get their green cards.
How many cases do you think you have that a parent and child are separated a year?
Well, it all depends on how they come, because most of the cases I've had, the children have come here alone rather than coming with the parent and being separated at the border. The separation itself was really only a policy in the last several months of this year. So up until, I think it was April of this year, if a parent and a child came, they would generally keep them together. And it was only in effect for about 2 months. So April, May, part of June would have been the time that they were actually doing the separation. And I've had maybe 3 clients who've come from that experience. Everyone else was, let's say, separated differently in the sense that the child may come alone, the parent may already be here, the parent may have sent the child.
The children that come, when they get separated from their family, is it like difficult for them to like reconnect with like their parents, or like for them to find out who their family members are?
It can be. I think it's most difficult when the children are very young and don't really know enough to express, who their family is, be able to say their parents' full name, where they were born, where they're from, things like that. Most of the children who I've worked with, I'm going to say, are older children from the ages of maybe 12 to 16. And in many of those cases, they obviously know who their parents are. Maybe they came here because they have an older brother or older sister here, or maybe their parents, one of the parents is already here and they've come up to be with that parent. So in cases like that, it's not so difficult to be able to, let's say, have the child experience the trauma of the separation and not know how to express themselves, because most of the children at that age already know who their parents are, and they're coming here with an expectation to maybe be with their older brother, sister, or their mom who's already been here for a few years.
This might be like a little emotional, probably. I really don't know, but how do you feel personally about when a parent and child get separated?
Well, it's difficult. A lot of the cases that I work with, the parents may have already been here for 10, 15, 20 years, and they're put in removal proceedings, and if they lose their case, they're going to be ordered deported. And if their children are born here, the children are U.S. citizens, so immigration doesn't have any authority over those children. And the family has to make the decision, well, do we all want to move back to the country? The situation there for economics, for security, for health may be very difficult. Sometimes you have children who are born here and have health problems. So let's say that you have asthma, for example, and the country that you would move back to, it's very polluted, or the family, your family relatives live in an area where there isn't good medical care. The parents have to think long and hard, well, what do we do in a case like this? Do we all go back and take the chance that our daughter may have problems with her health, or does somebody stay with her and we separate the family? So it's very difficult emotionally.
Do you feel like mad or like lashed out when the case doesn't go as like planned?
Well, I don't know about mad. I certainly feel disappointed and frustrated. There are times in which you do everything that you can, and there's just not much that can be done. So in cases like that, I always try to tell my clients beforehand, this case, we don't have a very good chance of winning, so don't prepare for, and be shocked if we don't win. Mm-hmm. Go in with the mentality that if we win, it's going to be a minority type of situation. That would be great, but we'll go in more realistically saying it's probably not going to happen.
Is that hard to to see somebody like sad when they don't like?
Well, yes. A lot of times, though, we probably stall for time. In other words, if they've been here for 3 years or 4 years beyond where they would have been deported before, that we see as kind of a win. It also allows a lot of people time to maybe work harder, get some more money saved up, and possibly buy or build a house back in their home country. Things that might make the transition back easier. Sometimes what happens too is that in that period, children will grow up, they may get married, start off on sort of their own. I've had a lot of cases in which, let's say when the removal or deportation began, we had a child who was in high school, and 5 years later, they're in their second or third year of college. They may already be married or have a steady boyfriend or girlfriend, things like that. So there's some continuation in some way that things can work. And if we have a U.S. citizen child, we have the opportunity in many cases for that parent to come back eventually to the United States, although it might be 10 years down the road.
So the cases that you have now, are there anything like that?
Oh, I have lots of cases like that, yeah. As I say, a lot of the cases with immigration take a long time, several years. And so I have people who are, to the point that we're going to begin the final stages this week, and I have other people who are just coming in to begin the very beginning stages this week.
So I guess that's the end of our questions.
Okay.
Thank you for bringing up your banana story.
Okay.
That was really interesting. And
It was a pleasure, Amanda, meeting you and listening to.
What you have to say about immigration?
yeah, and law school.
Have any of you had any chances or needs for attorneys or anything with immigration?
My mom just got her what's it called? Her American
Citizenship?
Her citizenship,
Congratulations.
and so did both of my sisters.
Okay.
And they just got them like a couple of years ago, I think it was.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a difficult time for them because they had to learn a lot.
Yeah, you have to take an exam that's not easy.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like taking the GED all at once because it's all on American culture and American history, but there are a lot of questions. You have to know the answers to 100 pretty difficult questions.
Yeah, I had to help my
Yeah.
mom study for it.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you for coming, and thank you for listening to our talk show today. We really appreciate it.
Okay. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.